ownership around my ability to create the life that I want to live. So if I want to be connected, if I want to be tapped in, if I want belonging, if I want authenticity in all of my relationships, then I own that. Like I have to show up and
Mm.
create that.
Welcome to the Unconditionally Worthy Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Adia Gooden, a licensed clinical psychologist who believes deeply that you are worthy unconditionally. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Unconditionally Worthy Podcast. I'm super excited about having my guest on today. We have been friends since about 2013. And he is just a really wonderful person. Moe comes with a wealth of wisdom from his own life and experience, from doing therapy with hundreds of clients, from being trained as a licensed marriage and family therapist and an energy healer. He's a relationship expert and he identifies as trans. So he's somebody who just has had a lot of life experience and is so thoughtful about drawing from that and sharing about the power of authenticity. And that's really what we get into today, how claiming your authenticity, living in an authentic and aligned way is incredibly powerful and empowering. And so if you are feeling like you want to be more authentic and you're not sure how to get there, or you're scared about what the implications that might have for your life, this episode is going to be incredibly inspiring. If you're looking for some more encouragement to be your full authentic self, be sure to listen to this full episode. Follow us. Let us know what you think. Send us a DM on Instagram. I know you're going to really love this episode just as much as I loved having the conversation. Let's get into it. I am so excited to welcome my friend Moe Ari on the podcast today. Moe is a licensed marriage and family therapist with almost a decade of experience helping people find alignment in their lives. Assigned female at birth, Moe Ari uses his own gender transition story to help many others discover their authentic voice and navigate the difficult journey of alignment. As a therapist, energy healing practitioner, and lover of all people, Moe shares his journey towards authenticity to help others learn to live in celebration of life's diversity in hopes that it will help all of us to move closer to oneness. I love this. I am so excited to welcome you to the podcast, Moe. Moe and I first met when he was in graduate school getting his master's of marriage and family therapy, and I was doing a postdoctoral fellowship, and we just kind of like connect. I'm not even totally sure how it happened. Maybe you remember it more clearly, but we like connected. I kind of feel like you, Moe, were like, you're going to be my friend. And I was like, okay.
Mhm.
And then we just started like
Absolutely.
hanging out and getting together and talking about life and relationships and kind of navigating all of that stuff. And so since then, we now have both gotten married, have both had kids, like, have both gone into sort of independent practice and building our own businesses and being entrepreneurs. And so much has happened since what was that, 2013, 2015, when we first kind of met and became acquainted. And I'm so thrilled to have you on the podcast to share your wealth of wisdom and insights and to just reconnect with you because you're an amazing human. So welcome to the podcast.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. That is such a beautiful introduction. Hearing that bio from you just felt very special. And I
Hmm.
totally remember when we met. I definitely think it was a moment of me being like, I am going to be friends with her. Like, there are not that many Black people here. And you just like, I mean, you already know who you are, which is beautiful. But like, you're just a very open, warm, welcoming soul that let me cry on your couch like so often. And it didn't feel like you were being my therapist, but it felt like therapy to have friendship and relationship with
Hmm.
someone who is that open. I think that was a first for me. So grad school
Yeah.
was really a time that definitely changed my life, and you were a big part of it. So I
Hmm.
am just honored to be here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I also just remembered another memory is when I was preparing for my TEDx talk. And a lot of people who listen to
Mm,
this podcast find
yeah.
me through that. And I had a bunch of friends over to kind of like help me prepare and practice and give me feedback. And Mo and his twin sister were two of the people who
Yeah.
came to like share in that process and support me. And that has definitely been a big thing in my life. So thank you for that. And it just popped in my head that that's like another sort of like touch point of something that was really big in my life that you showed up and supported me in.
Oh, yay. I remember that being so inspiring. I was like, I want to be like her when I grow up. One of these days, I'm going to, have that
I hope
courage. But
you
that
do.
was
Yeah,
just
yeah. Let's
such,
like
yeah.
you
We'll
you
keep
you
talking
you
about it.
need to have a
Yeah.
TED Talk. So yeah,
Okay.
let me know when that's going to happen, and I'll support you.
Absolutely.
So okay, let's kind of get into it. And I start all of my podcast conversations with guests asking you to share about your own self worth journey. So I'm hoping that we can start there with you talking about your self worth journey and kind of how you think about that for yourself.
It's a big question, but I love it. I really have thought a lot about this, especially because this is such an anchor in your show. Uh, but I think my journey, I have to say, I always start with where I came from. But just like, of course,
Mm,
honoring that I probably lived many lifetimes, but in this lifetime, where I
mm,
started was like the youngest of six siblings, and I was born to parents who had survived some really challenging circumstances, and they with
mm,
the knowledge they had, whether it was limited or expansive, they really were working hard to try and give us something different than what they had. So I had a lot of reverence for that, and I think I spent majority of my childhood, college years really wanting to achieve something that they would be proud of. So when I think about
mm,
my self-worth journey, I think it started there. So achievement definitely was something that was really tied to my self-value, my personal value, how I saw myself. And then being an identical twin was so much a part of how I saw myself. So be belonging to
mm,
something. And I'm often thinking of life in these very three I'm summing up life in these three terms. So belonging, authenticity, love, because those felt like they were such a big
mm,
part of my journey that belonging to something felt like it was
mhm,
so important. As the youngest of a family, feeling like everybody had their time before me and I'm trying to catch up, or being a
mm,
twin, my identity was just so wrapped up in other people, this external validation. Do you see me? Am I good enough? Are you proud of me? Do I
mm,
am I like you enough, relating to my sister? And it wasn't until grad school, I would say, that I started to really break free from a lot of that, where I was starting to
mm,
find my own way, do some things that were different. First, getting into the relationship with my now wife, Tiffany, was a big turning point because I never had
mm,
that courage before to do something that people didn't expect from me. I was doing everything people expected so that I could keep
mm,
getting that validation, and it was making me feel good until it
mm,
wasn't. So hard stop in grad
mm,
school once I started dating Tiffany, and I realized, oh, I could do something that would make them not be happy, and it made me angry. I think my
mm,
response was like this real upset. I don't even remember what our conversations were
mm,
like. I just remember always having just so much to pour out, and lay at your feet.
mm,
But it was
mhm,
so cathartic,
mhm,
those conversations. And I remember some of them being about just my identity and really this recognition that I was different. What am I going to do about it? What was the past 20 something years? And, so
mm.
I think that those are the foundations of my self-worth journey. That doesn't really tell you how I got beyond
Yeah,
that, but the beginning of that was
yeah,
this
yeah.
real recognition moment that started to happen in grad school.
Well, I think it's really powerful that you're sort of identifying these themes that were important for you, the belonging, the
Yeah.
authenticity, the love, right? And how it played out. And I love that you're also honest about like, it felt good to do what other people wanted me to do and get affirmed from that, right? Like that felt good
Mm.
until you reached a point where it was like, ooh, this doesn't feel good anymore. And then it's like, I
Absolutely.
think often people reach a point of like, it feel like, how bad does it feel to stick, to be out of authenticity? And when do you reach the point that it feels worse to be out of alignment with yourself for the approval of others, right? Versus feeling worse being in alignment, right? Like, and knowing that other people don't approve. It's like, which one feels worse and what's the tipping point? And I think it sounds like for you, like a big
Yeah.
piece was one, being in graduate school and needing, like, you're sort of forced into self-reflection, and you were in a marriage and family therapy program. So it's like systems, family dynamics, relationships, right? Like you're forced to look at it in a way that you just don't normally. And then two,
Absolutely.
like falling in love, right? And falling in love in an unexpected way and having to like grapple with that and being like, but this feels so good and this feels so aligned. So how could it be wrong? Even if people in my family don't get it or don't, you know what I mean? And so I appreciate you sort of sharing that, because it's so much more nuanced, I think, than a lot of people think it is on the outside.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. I think when you tapped into that love piece, because I was like thinking, okay, well, then what was the third part of this? If it's not belonging, authenticity, we talked about that. Then how does love fit in here? And I think prior to this moment where I'm realizing I'm in love with Tiffany and I'm sharing love, I'm creating love with Tiffany, I had thought I really was thinking that love was one outside of me, that it was going to be bestowed upon me by my family
Mm,
and other people in relationship with me. And I was also trying to do everything I could to get love, but I wasn't intentionally creating it. And so
mm,
when this it's almost
mm,
like a revelation of the heart to be now creating love with someone in this very different way. She accepts me unconditionally, and it kind of blew my mind.
mm,
I was like, oh, this is love. Oh, I'm in
mm.
pursuit of this. I want authenticity and belonging and love all in one.
Mm,
I do not want
mm.
to have to sacrifice
Yeah.
one for the other anymore. And I'm not doing it because before
Mm,
I was trading authenticity to get love or to have belonging and acceptance. And I was really living in a
mm,
scarcity or a
mhm,
duality between
mhm,
one of the other, always feeling like I had to
mm.
sacrifice one.
Yeah.
And I think that moment was just really pivotal. Like, oh, I can have all of it. Oh, I'm gonna keep creating all of it. Uh, and 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 it's interesting that even our relationship and how it formed, the two of us, I would not have been. I was shy. I would have considered myself shy or
Mm,
like less likely
mhm,
to make a new friend. So it's just
mhm.
very synchronous that we even connected or that I was even open. I feel like it was something about that
Yeah.
time in my life as well, like you're saying, grad school as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that you're saying creating love, right? Because I think we have a lot of phrases that we use around love, falling in love, getting love,
Yeah.
earning love, that are all very passive. I recently was
Mhm.
at Semicolon Bookstore in Chicago, which is a Black female owned bookstore. And it like moved basically to my
Yeah.
neighborhood, which is so cool. And they had this Toni Morrison quote. I'm like, oh, Toni Morrison's my favorite. I'm trying to find the quote. And it said, "Don't ever think I fell for you or fell over you. I didn't fall in love. I rose in it. I saw you and made up my mind." And it's just like
Mm.
so powerful, right? This like choosing. And I feel like part of what you're
Yeah.
speaking to is one, this space that Tiffany offered you, right? To be fully yourself, to say, no, you don't have to, you can have authenticity, belonging, and love all in one place. And it was like a paradigm shift. And it opened up this
Mhm.
thing. And then you said, you know what? I want to create this, right? Not just she's giving this to me and I'm just like a passive recipient of
Mm.
her love. Certainly, I'm sure she offered you lots of love, but I want to create
Yeah.
this loving space for me and for her together. And I want to
Mhm.
keep creating it. And I
Mhm.
think that's powerful.
Mhm.
And I also think, in terms of our friendship, like you were so willing to be vulnerable. And I think we just sort of started in this like vulnerable sharing, both of us sharing. And I think that's why I didn't feel like there, because both of us were like sharing like relationship challenges and this and that and figuring it out. And we're at sort of slightly different life stages. I'm a little bit older for those
Yeah.
listening, right? But it was just like, we're going to create a vulnerable, authentic space, right? That like we can just show up and be ourselves and all is welcome here. And that was really powerful and unfortunately unusual.
Yeah. Right. That is unfortunate. I think, yeah. It was definitely a newness to that. I think that there was this is all a part of this pivotal moment that's happening. Relationships with other therapists, and people who are
Mm,
surrounding these issues, this generational trauma, this lack of vulnerability, all the things that happen in culture that just kind of continue to transpire if we don't do something to change it. We're all like rallied around that. And so it certainly had me looking at my life in just more nuanced ways, and welcoming
mhm,
new opportunities to create something different. I think it woke me up to my ability. It was one
mm,
of the first run ins I had with my own creative power, like the ability to create my life. I think the light
mm,
bulb fully has turned on
mm,
now, like in the past 3 years. But I got a taste of it then. And it's like, oh, this is a glimpse of what my life can be
mm,
like when I'm really allowing community to reflect the things that I really value, like authenticity, like people who actually cultivate belonging, uh, and people who give love freely. This is what I envision the world to be like when it's as it should be.
mm. I love that. So you sort of alluded twice now to like, I'm telling you the beginning of the story, and then there was something that happened, and now I'm on the other side. So I'd love for you to sort of fill us in, right? And, if you're willing to share, to
Yeah,
talk about, how your gender transition played into feelings of worthiness, belonging, authenticity, love, and like what that journey and that part of your life story has been like.
absolutely. I'm so open, or I'm hoping to be. If I'm not open, you have to like pull my chain and be like, I want a little bit more. I want to give as much as
Okay.
possible to this. So grad school, there's that pivotal shift. And this is about 2015 when I graduate from grad school and I started doing therapy. And at this time, I already know that I'm identify as LGBTQ plus. I've like cut my hair, which was like the first thing that I did that was like different from my sister in my entire life. So it was this big moment
Mm,
where I was like recognizing, one, this feels good. I thought that with my hair short,
mm,
being a black femme person and having long hair, that was so connected to my identity for the longest time. So I thought once I cut
mm,
my hair that I was gonna feel bad. But when it felt like euphoria, I was like, this is again that
mm,
feeling. Uh, and I created this. I decided, I chose,
mm.
and it worked out. So I was like, okay, where else
Yeah.
can I keep doing this? What else can I keep, you know, rising to? Yeah, referencing this Toni
Mhm.
Morrison quote. And I think that hair cutting moment was a big moment for me because, okay, again, it's the first time I've done anything different than my sister. She continues to love me, which is like beautiful, even if she had challenges with us not looking alike. Okay. And then I just was like, but there's something else happening here. There
Mm,
is this recognition that if this is euphoria for me, this other stuff was not authentic, or at least it was
mm,
no longer authentic, even if it was at some point. And so then I set on this journey of like trying to figure out, okay, where else am I misaligned? I think at the time I was feeling like nothing in my life represented what I really wanted it to, and I felt
mm,
lost. I was trying to
mm,
go to more achievements. So I remember at a time talking to you and having a conversation like, I want to go to med school because I always want to be a doctor and
mm,
I didn't do that. And it
mhm,
was really like I didn't get into doctoral programs at the end of grad school. And I was like, I always wanted to be a doctor, but it was because I always went to write. Like I always wanted to do
mm.
academic things. And now it's like I've got so many opportunities to do stuff like that. But back
Without the
then,
mhm,
yeah, I was trying to fill up this void. I was starting to feel like, okay, stuff isn't aligned. So I was trying to go to the things I always go to. So if it's not
Mhm.
like my appearance and my identity, then let's go with achievement. That did
Yep.
not work. So I did do a little wafting back and forth before I figured it out.
And
And then
I can
somewhere
I
around,
just say, like, I
mhm,
remember being
yeah,
like,
I remember you being
"Of
like,
course you can," right? Like, there's no question about your ability to do a PhD or to do med school, I was really like, you know? And
yeah,
it's like, it's
it's
not
gonna be,
my choice, and I just wanna
yeah,
say, like, you don't have to do that. Like, that is
yeah,
not the only path and journey for you to take. And I think, I mean, this is my outside perspective, but I think it was probably a blessing that you didn't get into programs at the end of graduate school, right?
yeah,
Because I know that route, right? For proving self-worth, and it don't work either. um
mhm,
but you spend a lot of time. And so
mhm,
I think it's, in some, it's, I feel like that's such an example of like, sometimes the roadblocks are the blessing. Sometimes the things that divert
mhm,
your path are the blessing, and they don't feel that way in the moment. They can feel like failure. They can feel like, like things are blocked. They can feel like this is what I needed and what I wanted, and I'm not getting it. And what's wrong with me? But it's really actually like, shoot, maybe this is making me re examine what I actually want and whether I need that path to get there.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have that clarity then. You were trying to
Right.
tell me then. You really were. I remember the conversation vividly because, I think you really did help me to really reconsider it. I was like, I guess I don't really want to do this. I did not apply. I did not. I was like, redirect. But the thing was, I kept going to what I traditionally knew
Mhm.
could make me feel
Mhm.
authentic. And then ultimately I
Mhm.
realized I make myself feel, I
Yes.
choose, I decide. Nothing else can grant self-worth or accomplishment to me. So it's like I have to live from this passion. And around 2017, beginning to one, change my legal name, have top surgery, start hormones, and all of that whirlwind of going to group therapy for around gender, all of that helped me to begin to own that this was the void that I was feeling. It started with group
Mm.
therapy, and I always knew since I was, like, really young, I had I really didn't wanna have breasts. I was, like, mad when they were
Mm.
growing, like, "Let's just not even do that."
Mm.
I remember crying a lot.
Mm.
So I always knew that that was something I wanted to do, but the gender piece was like, "I think this is something that's coming to my awareness. Let me figure that out." So going to group therapy, it was not long before I was like, "Yeah, this is me." Too many
Mm.
people's stories are aligned with mine. I just had no name for what
Mm.
it was to be
Yeah.
transgender, or else I would have said it like
Mm.
when I was 15. I had like no words for that, but just that I
Mm.
wanted to wear boys' clothes, or that I, wanted to not have breasts and different things like that. Um, and that recognition, I think, was just a major shift. And so then the journey became, okay, how can I live in this authentically with all of this threat to belonging kind of happening
Mm.
in the external space? So if
Mhm.
transgender people are not accepted in society, how can I still show up authentically? Like, how can I get through
Mm.
this? So I started considering what I wanted to do was not just authenticity. I started calling it radical authenticity. Like,
Mm.
how can I show up even if there is this threat to belonging?
Mm.
Like, because there were moments where I was sitting with other clients who were transgender, and they're like, well, people don't accept me. So, I guess I need to hide.
Mm.
And of course, as a therapist, it breaks your heart, like sitting with people thinking about not being their full selves or dimming their lights in order to fit in. And because I had to not just talk the talk, I had to walk the walk. That's kind of pushed
Mm.
me over
Yeah.
into really owning it in my own life. I'm like, I can't sit with people every day and tell them to show up fully if I'm going to hide. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think clients were a blessing for me because I had people to be accountable to. I had people
Mm.
to whom it mattered if I showed up as me. Like they noticed every single thing about me as it was
Mm.
changing, whether it was growing facial hair or, and I'm getting emotional thinking about it. Like
Mm.
I love these people, these humans.
Mm. Mm.
Um, just like, they were so supportive when I was coming back from top surgery and just any
Mm.
change. Like when I was going through IVF with my partner, like my clients were
Mm.
extremely like celebratory, and it just mattered to them in this way where I was able to recognize this part of myself that had been longing to be celebrated, had
Mm,
by myself, or longing to allow myself to be seen. And I was like, this matters. So I just
mm,
connected so deeply with the work during this particular time, especially when I was in the throes of, appearing more gender queer, because that was community. I didn't think my clients were going to be my community, but they
mm.
were. And I'm just grateful for the work at that time.
Are you an ambitious professional woman who is tired of feeling overworked and underappreciated, ready to believe in your worth and to reclaim your power? If you answered yes, I want to invite you to apply to join the next cohort of the Unconditionally Worthy Group Coaching Program. This program will save you thousands of hours and dollars spent in therapy by guiding you on a clear path to heal past trauma, connect to your inner wisdom, and reclaim your power so you can stop overworking and start succeeding with ease while creating a life filled with joy and peace. Apply now, and I will personally review your application and invite you to a self-worth consultation call with me if it seems like you're a good fit for the program. Applications close on February 16th, and when the limited number of spots are filled. So be sure to apply now before it's too late. Go to unconditionallyworthy.com/program to learn more and apply. Can't wait to see your application. I love that so much. It like brings tears to my eyes because I think there's a number of reasons, but I think part of what you're saying is you were giving yourself permission to be your full authentic self and express that was giving your clients permission to also do that, showing that
Yeah.
courage of like walking in your authentic self, even with the challenges and the risks, was, giving your clients courage and hope that they could also do the same thing. And then I also love how you're bringing in the
Yeah.
sort of the mutuality of the relationship that you had with your clients,
Mm.
because I think in the white Western paradigm of traditional psychotherapy, it's very, the
Yeah.
therapist is the authority, the therapist is boundaried and sort of cut off from the client, the therapist is
Yeah.
the helper, the fixer, the saver, and the client is receiving the help, the healing, the whatever. And I think that what you're
Mhm.
showing and what you're talking about is, no, this is a relationship. Right? And like, yes, there
Yeah.
are different dynamics and
Absolutely.
different roles, but it's not one sided. And no, you weren't going in and being
Mm.
like, let me tell you everything that happened to me today, right? Like it was the client's space and you were
Right.
protecting that. And that you could still have this mutual connection that's so beautiful. And I think this is one of the powers of group therapy, which you mentioned, or like group coaching, which I do, is it is
Mhm.
powerful for people to tap into their own wisdom and share that with others, right? So just even your clients
Mm.
being able to be like, I see you, and to like share, like that
Mhm.
is affirming for them, right? That they're not
Mhm.
broken and like, can't give anything, but like even, while they're focused on their healing, they can still offer things and connect in this really beautiful way. And so I just love that you shared
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. Wow. I appreciate you putting it into those words. And I really, that feels like it fully captures that experience of showing up authentically. And then, like, that is the work. It's like allowing other people to see us and to, you know,
Mm,
to really receive our journey, even if it's not that I'm speaking all of my journey. They don't know my whole story, but what they can see and perceive was meaningful. And I think that was my work.
yeah.
A lot of it has been allowing myself to be seen. I think it's new levels every week. There's something different, especially with regard to some of the platforms I'm on now. I'm like, I didn't think that, my authenticity was
Mm,
going to get me this far. And then so it's like another challenge uh, to
mm,
share myself. Even like being on podcasts, it's like, okay, now this message is going to reach even more people. And so there
mhm.
were different levels, but now I feel so open and not here for validation. I just feel
Mm,
here and present because I want to share love. And I think that there is like, okay, yes, I feel like I've tapped into that love aspect even more now. It's like I'm not here for validation. I feel more confident. Like I know who I am and I know that I'm
mm,
choosing who I am. And I think that that journey kind of was a nice, it was almost like I tore down all of what I thought I was or who I thought I
mm,
was to get to this place where it's like now I decided and I chose. I picked my name, like so quite literally, I chose who I am, and I
mm,
get to be here now in the space of real acceptance of myself. I think that that's what it feels like.
mm, mm. There's so much power in that. There's so much power in choosing, in deciding who you are and who you want to be and how you want to show up in the world, regardless of what other people think, right? There's so much power. And I'd love for you to just talk a little bit more about that, sort of this connection between power and authenticity, right? I think a lot of people shy away from authenticity because it feels too risky, because it feels vulnerable. And people associate vulnerability with weakness, with other people are going to have power over me. I'm going to miss out, I'm going to lose out. And I hear part of what you're saying, which is the more authentic I am, the more power I gain, the more opportunities I have, the more things that flow to me, right? Because I am standing in my power and authenticity. And yeah, maybe some things passed you over, right? Like you didn't get into grad school, but like, thank goodness, because you wouldn't be doing all of this,
Yes.
right? And so it's like, wow, can you just talk about sort of that connection, the power and authenticity that you see for your own life, you see for your clients, and yeah, how you think about it in general?
Yeah. Yes, I love your way to put things into words. I just feel that, it presents me quite a challenge, I think, to put into words this particular experience, but I will definitely, try. I think at the core of a lot of my work around authenticity has been coming to this understanding that when I am hiding from other people or hiding parts of myself, I'm not offering wholeness. And that wholeness is really, really
Mm,
important to connection and
mm,
ultimately oneness. Like if I want to be connected or tapped into what really joins all of us, then I really have to show up
mm,
fully. I can't receive unconditional love if I don't allow people to love me and all of me.
mhm,
And that, so it's really been what we've been talking about here so far around like ownership around my ability to create the life that I want to live. So if I want to be connected, if I want to be tapped in, if I want belonging, if I want authenticity in all of my relationships, then I own that. Like I have to show up and
mm,
create that. And authenticity really offers us this opportunity to be witnessed fully, to actually fully
mm,
embody every single emotion that we're experiencing. I think of every single time I was in moments, especially when I was genderqueer, where I was like uncomfortable going into a bathroom and I was like, you
mm,
know, I don't know if I should be here, acting really uncomfortable. And
mm,
then I think about the times where now where I'm in there and I'm taking selfies and I'm lingering and I'm looking at people in the eye and people are like, "What up, bro?" Like, and it's a
mm,
totally different experience. I have the same
mm,
experiences at the gym. And I was like, nothing changed but me.
mm,
These are still strangers.
mm,
But my level of
mm.
embodiment is different. So my reality and my
Yeah.
experiences in life are different. I'm not feeling depressed. I was like extremely depressed in things in grad school, but my experience of my life has shifted so much because I feel so in charge of it. I feel like
Mm,
when things happen to me that are challenging, that they don't make or break my day. One, I find that challenges are
mm,
opportunities for us to grow. There are always these sacred lessons and
mm,
opportunities coming to us. So I have these reframes that happen now. But then authenticity has also offered me the the perspective that I just decide how my day is going to go. So even if I got into some difficulty this morning, that doesn't mean that we're going to have a bad conversation. I think always being in that seat of ownership now has shifted my life dramatically, even down to what you were saying earlier, so powerful. And I have examples of that happening right now, that things just flow to you. You don't have to work as hard or like do. You get to just be, and things just like you
Yes.
attract. It's like it's not
Yes.
inactive. The doing is very strategic. You show up authentically. That's your work.
Mhm.
If you do that, then things will
Yes.
come. And I've been just so grateful to see
Yes.
that play out in so many different ways.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much about that that I love. I mean, I think it's really about moving out of victimhood, right? And we
Yeah,
can create a victim narrative for our lives in so many ways, right? In so many, like,
yeah,
this happened to me, they did that to me, they didn't let me, they didn't like me. And it's victim, 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 victim. And
yeah.
when we are embodying or identifying as a victim, we lose our power, because what we are saying is they
Mm,
have the power over me to determine how my life
mm,
goes, right? And
absolutely.
yes, people can do things that impact us. That is true, right? Like, we're not, going through the
Mm,
world with nothing, like nobody and nothing can affect us.
mm,
And what you're talking about
mm,
is like to be empowered to decide and to choose and to have agency over, what you can control in your life, which doesn't mean over control, because you're
yeah,
also saying, I show up authentically, I do what I need to do, I be the way I need to be, and then the universe,
yeah,
whatever, God, whatever you believe, right, like, brings the rest,
yeah,
right? It shows up without force
yes,
and for, you know what I mean, this
yes,
intensity. And I also love what you
yeah.
said about like creating belonging, because that was a thing
Mm,
I struggled with. And I still sort of from time to time can fall
mm,
into this, like, feeling left out. Like, this is a big thing in my life, like feeling left out,
yeah,
feeling on the outside. And I think for a long time it was, people aren't including me, people aren't inviting me, right? And it's like, Adia, just
yeah.
reach out. It's like, now it's like, just reach out.
Mhm.
Like, just text, just
Yes.
call. And it's like, oh no, like, they're not excluding you. They're not. And so it's this place of empowerment that can feel scary, in part because it also
Mhm.
requires responsibility, right? Not
Yeah.
blame, not I'm awful and it was all my fault, but okay,
Mhm.
this is what I'm responsible for, is texting people or reaching out or doing
Mhm.
this. And you get so much power.
Yeah.
You move through the world powerfully when you
Mhm.
own your authenticity, when you're moving in this space, instead of, life is happening to me, I'm a victim, I'm at the effect of, woe is me, I can't do anything to change it.
Absolutely. 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 And I think I see the ripple effects of all of that in all of my relationships. Like, even thinking about my wife now, it's different when you're first starting to date, and like all of it is like intense and passionate and like all of the things all of the time. And then being like married for like, I think 4 years on the third, we're of November, we're like, so much, everything has to be intentional. So when we look at connection, if we haven't
Mhm.
connected, I'll find myself having moments where I'm like, she has not shown me affection. And then that other voice now kicks in and it's like, okay, how are you creating connection? Like, I need you to go and
Mm.
do something to foster that. And without fail,
Mhm.
if I show up with flowers, I'm getting what I'm like desiring. And I think that that has been such a powerful mindset shift,
Mm.
to notice the impact of our creative potential in all of our relationships, and that responsibility to ourselves first, then that responsibility to others. And, if we just, I think if we can all as people really lean into that, our ownership and that responsibility in a new way, not like burdensome, like you're right, like you were saying, like it's not like a burden, but the responsibility to ourselves and this ownership. And I think it would change how we see relationship with others and our ability to be authentic. You're like,
I
yes.
really hope people are hearing you because, right, like, if you are
Yeah.
in a relation, if you're listening, you're in a romantic relationship, if you're in a friendship, if you want to be in one, like Mo is a relationship expert, right? Like, I am like, I have done years of couples therapy. Like, this is gold, what Mo is saying, right? Because so often we enter into our relationships in a passive way. We're like, why don't they
Absolutely.
know that I need them to
Yeah.
A, B, C, X, Y, Z? And then there's often another layer, which is, well, I don't want to tell them because if I tell them and then they do it, then it doesn't count. Right?
Mm.
Like, woo, that's a setup. Like, so if you
It's a lot.
tell your partner that you want him or her, or them to bring you flowers, and then they say, oh, great, I'm so glad I knew. Let me bring you flowers. And you said, well, I had to tell you. So I'm like, oh, Lord.
Mhm.
Like, right? Because we sort of created this
Yeah.
narrative. And, it's like you need to be a passive princess. Often it's,
Yeah.
gendered. And I think
Mhm.
people of all genders have this passivity in relationships too. I don't think it's only,
Yeah.
folks who are female identified, but it's like I need to be a passive princess who other
Yeah.
people dote on, and if they really loved
Yeah.
me, then they would know exactly what I want and need, and they would
Mhm.
do that. And if they don't know exactly
Mhm.
what I want and need,
Yeah.
then it means they really don't love me and they don't care. And I think that there's an intersection with
Yeah.
this and authenticity, both in terms of the like getting out of victimhood and the
Mhm.
creation, which is like, well, what am I doing to promote connection and love and affection in the relationship?
Mhm.
Because often what people do is they say, you never bring me flowers,
Yeah.
which is very
Yeah.
different, which is going to
I've been
get
guilty
I
of that.
brought you flowers a month ago versus like, hey, I really feel so special when you bring flowers. Like it really just makes me feel connected. It makes me feel like you
Yeah.
thought about me. And I'd love
Yeah.
to have that happen more often. Which would then should probably
Yeah.
get oh, okay, like thanks for letting me know. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But so we
Yeah.
expect to be doted on. So that's one piece. But I think the other piece I wanted to touch on is when we don't know what we want ourselves, when we are not
Yes.
in
Oh my
alignment and
gosh.
authentic within ourselves, then we can't articulate
Mhm.
what we want our partners or friends to do. And then we get mad that they can't guess. But the truth is, we would have a hard time articulating it anyway. And so, the authenticity piece, becoming authentic, acknowledging our feelings, acknowledging our emotions, like you were describing for yourself, acknowledging, like, I want my hair short, I want to dress like this, that actually enables us to then one offer ourselves the space to be authentic, the space to love ourselves the way we want to be loved, and then two, articulate it to the people who we want to love us, who hopefully want to love us and will do really well by us when they know what we need and we want.
Absolutely. 100,000%. If that's like a percent, I think at times infinity. You know, you're just making me think so much about how this journey of authenticity for me hasn't just been about showing up authentically. Like everybody see I'm transgender, everybody see, these external identities. It's also been about speaking the truth. And I think authenticity, we don't always put truth and authenticity in the same conversation, but that's been this chapter of my life and my journey that's unfolding,
Mm,
is not just about showing up as me,
mm,
but it's also about the things that I say and whether or not those things are also aligned with my values, the world and the
mm,
life that I'm trying to create. I've done a lot of things that don't require me to
mm,
speak so far. Like I can write some stuff. I can, show up on social media. I can go to
mm,
presentations and, offer my advice, the things that I've prepped and written. But this speaking from truth is so much a part of this authentic process. So even if it's
mm.
speaking your truth to your partner, and if the core of that is that you are grateful for flowers, then say that. Don't say you haven't brought me. That's not the truth. it's really that at the core of it that you're grateful for
Mm.
flowers. And you're like, yeah. And so
Right.
this
And the
process of
core also might
really,
be I feel disconnected and
yeah.
scared that you're not bringing me flowers,
Hmm.
and I worry what that means about our relationship, which is also very different than you don't
Yeah.
bring me flowers no more.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, it didn't get all the way down to what it actually is. And so, right, it could be a myriad of things, but if we are able to take the conversation from that surface level and how it comes out and the judgments associated with that, then we are getting closer to truth. And I think this has been the next part of my journey of like authenticity, but also like self worth, because I don't always, or I haven't
Mm,
always operated like the things that I say matter. So even if I don't text you for
mm,
your birthday, for instance, you specifically, like if I don't text you for your birthday, I could have been thinking some of those years like it's not gonna matter. Dia got so many friends, undervaluing
mm,
whether or not that matters to you that I text you.
mm,
And so that is not me operating from authenticity or full truth, because I'm
mm.
like blind to it in so many ways because of this lack of, this feeling that I'm maybe not worthy to show up in certain relationships or spaces fully. But that all has to do with me and how I'm thinking. That it's not
Mm,
going to matter to someone, or I'm not going to matter because I've operated from that for so long. So even if I'm showing up in the
yeah.
professional space, like, hey, I'm Mo. In my professional life, I have some learning to do around my speaking, like speaking the truth,
Mm,
which is often that I love so many people and I just don't know how to be vulnerable. So this is the next part of the journey, or I'm relearning how. So yeah,
mm,
thank you for pulling that, because I was like, that's very aligned with where I am now,
mm. Thank
stepping out
you.
of
Yeah. I mean,
victimhood
I
and
think
sharing my truth.
those are powerful things, right? And I really hope those of you who are listening will take those away. Like, if you find yourself creating a story of it's happening to me, how do you step out of that and into your power? What do you have agency over? What do you have the power to do? We always have more choices than we think we do. What choice can you make? And then
Hmm.
this truth and believing that your truth is worth hearing, right? That's what you're saying. It's like, one, acknowledging your truth is a big part of authenticity, and then speaking it and sharing it and putting it out in the world. And I think we shy away from that because it feels vulnerable, right? Like, what if somebody says, I don't like your truth, or I don't like you because of your truth? And that's where we come back to like, if I like me, if I have people who I know love and like me, like that's enough. And I don't need everybody to like me, because guess what? Everybody's not going to like you. Just not going to happen. And if
Yeah.
everybody likes you,
Yeah.
you may be vanilla, but nobody loves you. I mean,
Mm.
just, like
Yeah.
some people love vanilla, but hopefully people get my point, right? It's like the reason people love
Yeah.
and get excited about people is because they are their authentic selves, not because they're trying to
Mhm.
blend into the wall. And
Mhm.
so I hope that people
Yeah.
will hear like this is a powerful path, a powerful journey. And I
It is.
really believe that people will be inspired by you, Mo, and all the things you're
Mhm.
sharing about your journey, and even your honesty and authenticity about like it's still evolving, right? Like, I've come this far and it's
Yeah.
an ongoing evolution, which it is for all of us. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love again how you're phrasing that. It just made me think how much, like, just getting to this thought of power and authenticity, like how much authenticity is kind of like a spark that grows into a
Mm,
small fire, and then it spreads, and then it becomes like this huge, this huge event. And it's not just like, it's not destructive. It only takes in its path what no longer is serving everything, and then it leaves room for something new to grow, something new to emerge inside of everyone that it reaches. And I
mm,
just can think of like how powerful that was to go through that destruction process or that breaking down in
mm,
order to really emerge new. So I don't see myself quite like a phoenix, like not in a self-serving way anyway, but just in the sense that I surrendered to this process and allowed for something new to emerge. But I think that when you're talking
mm,
about feeling like a victim, that's often where that's coming from is like we're seeing the destruction happening, but we're not seeing what the potential is for
Mm.
what potentially might take its place.
Mhm. Mhm. Right. We see the loss, but we're not seeing the opportunity for
Hmm.
gain, for growth, for evolution, for all of those things. And sometimes you can't
Hmm.
see it in the moment, and that's okay. You can hold in the space of,
Yeah.
I don't know, of I feel lost, of I feel scared, of I feel, you know, challenged, right? And you can hold in that space still
Yeah.
without being the victim and just try to hold on to the faith and trust
Yeah.
that it will change and evolve. And eventually you will come through it and be able
Mm.
to see the opportunity, the evolution, all of those things.
Mm.
So I know that people are going to want to connect with
Absolutely.
you further. And I know you're also sharing your wisdom in a bunch of different places. So please tell people how and where they can find you and follow you so they can, just get more of the goodness
Yeah.
that you're putting out in the world.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So many places. Where do I start? Okay, first, you can download the Mind app. That's Mined. The Mind app is an emotional wellness platform. And I'm there along with some other experts, people you've had on your podcast already, like Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Alexandra Solomon.
Yeah,
Uh,
Alexandra Solomon. I know
and
is on
we
there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then we offer just regular advice. So if you want to follow me there, that's a great place. Also, my wife and I started a podcast, the hashtag Love Goals podcast. The whole premise for the podcast is learning how to be your own love goals. So we're not modeling our relationships after anyone
Hmm.
else, but ourselves, and that we just approach love from an intentional way. Then at Love Out
I
Proud
love
on
that.
Instagram, or my website at themoari.com. I think those are the best ways, but I'm always looking to connect. And I'm just grateful for any opportunity to learn from someone else. So definitely feel free to reach out to me.
Awesome. Thank you again. It's been an honor and a joy to have you on the podcast and to connect and just be in conversation with you and hear your wisdom. So I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's always good to connect with you too.